what advice do you have for somebody that wants to get into long-distance backpacking post-retirement?
A lot of it is that I talk about is ultralight hiking. When you're older, you need every advantage you can get, believe me. You don't recover as quickly. I've made all these mistakes. Is to start out too many miles too early, too fast. Basically, your cardio is one of the things that you develop first, maybe a few weeks on the trail, but it takes longer to strengthen your tendons and your ligaments, muscles, and the bottoms of your feet, quite honestly, so you don't get blisters.
Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek, brought to you by Element. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
I am Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Few reminders. First is, if you want the best from The Trek, head to the link in the show notes. We'll get you to The Trek's newsletter. This is where we send our weekly newsletter, the best content from The Trek of the previous week, put out job postings, we do gear giveaways, all the good stuff goes out through the newsletter. So if you want to be a Trek VIP, head to the link in the show notes. Next is, we are but a few weeks away from PCT Trail Days.
Mm-hmm.
Are you excited?
Yes, very. We are less than a month away.
Yes.
We are a month away from my wedding.
Yes.
As of listening time, which is insane. I imagine at this point in time, I am feeling very calm and collected and eager to go on this trip. And all the wedding stuff is done and tucked away. And we are just... Oh, I saw a thing that I was like, this should be a game for PCT Trail Days. Not seriously, but remember how we had to retire watermelon smashing?
Yes.
This was a log cutters competition where they had to cut down trees, and the angle they cut the tree would direct it where to fall, and the goal was to hit a watermelon that was sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
So if we got some trees and some chainsaws, we could then place the watermelons towards the fall zone.
That's a good point. We haven't talked about games at all.
Well, we talked about my mini bachelorette.
Well,
I actually think I'm good on that after I've had my real one.
Enough bachelorette. You're
I still haven't drank since. But maybe I'll revisit.
Yeah.
I know you had planned a lot, so
tons of planning.
Keep the Amazon cart full.
No, it's a good thing that I got no security deposits down on any of the stuff that I put. But we'll be at the Trek's booth, in and out all day Friday. We will be traveling back to Colorado on Saturday, but Jess will be holding down the Trek's booth all for the entire PCT Trail Days. So definitely swing by the booth, say what's up. I think we'll be doing fun games and stuff.
We could do fun games.
Yeah.
We could get canned beans and see how many people could eat. That could be our eating contest.
I have to believe that there will be something food related.
Yeah.
We're still too far away to feel the pressure of planning something concretely.
Can of dog food, wet dog food.
Yuck.
Fancy Feast will win.
Yeah. Yuck. Is that safe? It's probably not safe.
I don't know.
Maybe it's safe. But yeah, we'll be there. Is there anything else we need to say about that? No.
I don't think so. We have interviews lined up.
We do. Yeah, I think we're good on interviews, but shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Shoot your shot.
You could always be better.
So this is the eternal struggle because Chauncey and I, that's true. Chauncey and I want to go to the booth and hang out, but we also want to make killer podcast content.
Yeah.
And there's always opportunity cost. You can't do it all.
Yeah, and the thing that stinks about this one is we had so much fun at PCT Trail Days last year.
This is good. And we're only going to be there for a blip.
Yeah, so we're going to want to take advantage of it. But
I think we get to go on the big boat this year, though.
Do we? Are they going to let us on the big boat?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Well, basically, all of this is to say we challenge you. If you think that you have a unique enough story to tell that it would warrant us staying away from the booth for longer, we challenge you to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Entice us.
Yeah. If you're someone who is into that.
And do it in a Tron's bachelorette party fashion.
With alcohol?
Or we talked previously about penis-shaped objects.
Oh.
But not penises specifically.
That's how they're going to entice us to let us interview them?
Oh, I thought you were talking about to hang out at the Trek's booth.
No. To get us to not hang out at the Trek's booth and to interview instead.
They could still use penis-shaped, if you make a penis-shaped cookie or something.
Yeah.
Could that help?
I don't know how they'll get it to us in enough time for us to plan to interview them.
Well, they would take...
Send Zach a picture of your penis. Cookie. And if it's good enough, we will interview you.
Yeah, you can send all the penis cookie photos you want.
At CR Davis.
Emphasis on cookie.
Zach at thetrek.com.
All right. Next is we are recruiting for a host, editor, and producer for our popular podcast series, Trail Correspondents. Season 5 is game on. We have yet to select the host, editor, producer. Basically, you're going to be the moron. If you listen to the last season, that'll make more sense. But Kenneth Pereiro, moron, was the host, editor, and producer of Season 4. We need someone to fill that seat for Season 5. All of the information and details for that very prestigious position will be available through the link in the show notes. Last but not leastly, if you enjoy this podcast and you want to support us, you can do so through our Patreon page, patreon.com/backpackerradio. For as little as $5 per month, you can become a Patreon of this. And we run all of our episodes ad-free through the Patreon. So.
And the extra support really does help, and it allows us to do extra fun things like take trips to do PCT trail days, which we never used to do, but now we can do it because we have the support there to make things like that possible. And we would love to do all kinds of great interviews in all kinds of great places with the people that are available in those great places. That way we're not just limited to the Denver pool, but all of that unfortunately takes, funding. So if you want to support the show, it would mean a lot.
Yes. Okay, well, let's get right to our interview with Karl Ford. We are joined by today's guest, Karl Ford, who is a retired environmental scientist with the Department of the Interior, where he directed west-wide Ecor regional assessments for the Bureau of Land Management. He was a consultant to the Wilderness Society and advisor to Wild Connections for a climate change project to identify climate refuges and corridors for the central Colorado mountains. He is the author of Triple Crown Hiking Adventures and has contributed to Park Science, Appalachian Journeys, Landscapes, Mile High Mountaineer, and the All the West Gazette. Karl, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Do you have a trail name?
Yes, it's Speed. I always get a few laughs and questions about that, but most people's trail names are given to them by other hikers. I've had this nickname in my family all of my life, and I decided I don't need another nickname, and I just told everybody that that's my trail name. And I'm not exactly fast anymore, but I was when I was younger.
Fast mile time, fast hiker? What's
just like a hyperactive kid, probably, and sort of an athlete, and I've always been a strong hiker.
Yeah. Well, so what was your go-to sport as a kid?
Football and wrestling, but I played most all of them.
Do you have a football team you cheer for?
The Broncos, of course.
Oh.
Used to have season tickets for like 30 years.
Okay.
Not the Colts? You mentioned earlier before we were recording that you're from Indiana originally.
Yeah, not the Colts. I don't even think the Indianapolis Colts were there when I was there.
True. Where were the Colts before Indianapolis?
Baltimore.
That's right.
The Baltimore Colts?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
This is ancient history.
Where'd they get the Ravens from? Did they just make them when the Colts left?
The teams were stolen, sold, and moved around.
So give me your origin story into the outdoors.
Yeah, okay. I mentioned I grew up in Indiana, and my family was very active in scouting, back when scouting had a good name. And my dad...
Scouting as in Boy Scouting?
Yes.
Okay.
My dad was one of those dads who was like the cub master and the troop leader, or scout master rather, and then the explorer leader. So he took my brother and I and a bunch of our friends and neighborhood kids all the way through scouting from, probably 8 years old through 16 or 17. And we did a lot of camping and some backpacking, and my dad really didn't know that much about backpacking. Back in those days, backpacking gear was heavy, Army surplus stuff, and but we used it, and I have to say that although my dad was an FBI agent, and he was a powerful man, and he was somewhat of an authoritarian guy, but he kind of ran our scouts with a bit of an iron hand, but everybody loved him. And he passed away some years ago, but a lot of his former scouts still stay in touch with him. They did, at least until he passed away. So that's how I grew up learning outdoor skills. We took trips to Colorado as a scouting group and hiked around Colorado. I worked at Philmont Scout Ranch in Cimarron, New Mexico for 3 seasons. And that's where I got even more into backpacking in the outdoors. If you've never heard of Philmont, it's the largest youth high-adventure camp in the nation, maybe in the world. And it's a backpacking paradise, and hundreds of miles of trails. You can go 70 miles north to south and still be on the Philmont Scout Ranch. And it's in high mountains near Cimarron, New Mexico. So that's my story.
An FBI agent father, what is that like?
Well, he's probably like a lot of dads back then, but here's a little quick story since we've got some time. He was at a PTA meeting one night. I wasn't there, but I heard a lot about this. And you know how in the old days they would set up the chairs in the auditorium or the gymnasium. I think it was the elementary school. And somebody was talking, everybody is quiet, and his gun falls back out onto the floor with a big loud clunk. And everybody turned and looked. And here's another story. Maybe it's related a little bit to my book. My dad and I am part Native American. And he got interested in his Native American culture. He started building Indian costumes for himself and some of our scouts, kind of on the cheap stuff, really, when I was small. Then we moved to Wyoming. I moved to Wyoming when I was about 16. My dad got transferred. I finished high school there, but we lived in the middle of the Indian Wind River Indian Reservation, and in Riverton. And any major crime on an Indian reservation has to be investigated by the FBI. So my dad made a lot of contacts, and the fact that he was part Indian, I think, made things work pretty smoothly. Here's another story from my book about that subject. So I'm 16, 17 at home, and the state game and fish guy comes and knocks on the home, on the door. And he says, "Mr. Ford, I understand that you're part Indian and you're also an FBI agent." He said, "I have 3 golden eagle carcasses that got electrocuted.
Oh, no.
And I'm not sure what to do with them. And I thought maybe you might know. And there's a thing called the Golden and Bald Eagle Protection Act. And only Native Americans are allowed to possess eagle parts, feathers, any part of an eagle." And so my dad says, well, I was really surprised and didn't really know what to say. And he said, well, let me make some phone calls and I'll let you know. So the guy drove away, came back. My dad made some calls, and my dad said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to donate them to the tribe. There's the Shoshone and the Northern Arapaho there. And so Dad takes the carcasses and and some of the tribal folks come over, and they're so thankful to have them because they make them into costumes, all the feathers and wings and so forth. And the Indian folks drive away, and Dad's kind of like, oh, glad that's over with. And a month or 2 or 3 later, they come back, and they say, "Mr. Ford, we have a present for you." And Dad's going, "Oh, what's that?" And so they came back with this Native American handcrafted headdress made out of eagle feathers, and an eagle bustle, which is a large fan-shaped feathered piece that fits on the back of your rear. And they're used for fancy dancing, and they were just stupendously beautiful. And my dad says, I can't take those. He says, I'm not allowed to possess those. And they said, well, you're part Indian, right? And he goes, well, yeah. And so my dad makes some more calls to headquarters, and they said, well, you're on the rolls of the tribe, right, in South Dakota? Yeah. You have an Indian lease grazing allotment, right? Yes, I do. And they said, well, yeah, you can have them. And so my dad ended up taking them, and he would dance at the powwows. And fast forward to, we moved to Colorado near Denver, and he was retired at that time. And he would use the costume, including the eagle feathers, and he had elaborately beadwork for the costume, and it was just pretty amazing costume. And he used to go around to schools, and he would explain to grade school kids about the costume and Indian culture. And he had a teepee, and he'd sometimes put that up. And so this is all about my dad. My dad passes away. And what do I do with these eagle feathers? I'm only a smidgen Lakota Sioux, and I'm not on the rolls of the tribe, and I don't believe I'm really entitled to possess them. So I donated to them to a museum in La Junta, Colorado, the Kashari Indian Kiva. And they said they would display them, and went down a couple of years later, and they weren't displaying them. And kind of cutting to the chase here, I took them back, and I held them for a little while, and then up near Evergreen, there was a powwow going on, an Indian powwow, Indian dancing. And so I go up there and I watch the powwow, and I approach one of the guys afterwards, one of the dancers, and I said, hey, I have this eagle headdress and this eagle bustle, and would you be interested in having it? Because I would like somebody to use it where it could be seen. And he said, I would love to have it, because a lot of them don't really have access to eagle feathers. They're hard to get. And so I repatriated that part of my dad's costume. And I talk about that in my book because along the Colorado Trail, which maybe I assume we'll get to, you pass Mount Ouray. And of course, Ouray was a famous Ute Indian chief in Colorado. And I talk about Ouray, and in some ways it reminded me of my dad, even though I never met Chief Ouray. There's been a lot of history written about him. And so I kind of made that connection, because all of the lands that the Colorado Trail traverses were Native American lands, no surprise, at one time. Northern Arapaho and Cheyenne and some other tribes, but most especially the Ute tribe, because they really pretty much had the province of the mountains. So I make that connection in my book between Chief Ouray and my dad, and the lands that were originally held by them before white Europeans came in. So.
You mentioned that your dad was on the rolls of the
Yes.
Ute tribe.
The Lakota.
Lakota, rather. Sorry. But you were not. Is that just like a certain percentage of?
I think so. The record keeping was a little suspect back in those days. My dad was, we think, an eighth, possibly a fourth. So that makes me half of that. And so I'm mostly European descent. But, yeah.
I don't know where you want to take this next, but I could go in a million directions.
Take it.
Okay. You mentioned your book and the Colorado Trail and the history behind it. I love the history behind trails and hearing stories about things that have happened along the trail that you might not know when you're just hiking it, but then had you known or once you know, it becomes a lot cooler. Do you have a specific story that sticks out to you of something that might have happened along the Colorado Trail that you just think is super cool?
Well, I probably just gave you my best one. Trying to connect my Native American heritage, as slim as it is, to the Colorado Trail mountains that it traverses. I could make a couple of thoughts on that. So I worked for 20 years for the Bureau of Land Management, and they're the largest land manager in the nation, larger than the Forest Service, Park Service, any of the other agencies, federal agencies. And I really have a strong passion for public lands. And so I talk about that in the book a lot, what a great legacy we've inherited from the great conservationists that came before us, and how we need to protect those. I also have an environmental toxicology, hazardous waste management background. And so I worked all over Colorado on mining sites, abandoned mining sites that are still out there. We've cleaned some of them up, but they are leaching heavy metals and sometimes cyanide into the environment. And the Colorado Trail actually passes through several mining districts, as you probably know. And I could talk about some of the projects that I worked on. It's really not relevant to my book so much, or the Colorado Trail, but it's a huge history of Colorado and the gold rush in Colorado, and that's basically how Colorado got developed. And it also relates to the Ute tribe story and how the miners basically and the politicians made the Ute tribe sign treaty after treaty, and the white Americans broke every single treaty, and each time forced the tribe onto smaller lands and eventually chased them entirely out of the state. So that's part of our history and our legacy that we have to be aware of.
Where did the Ute tribe move when they got pushed out of the state?
So there's actually at least three factions of the Ute tribe. The Ute Mountain tribe are the ones who got sent away. There was a thing called the Meeker Rebellion. And interestingly, we have a town named Meeker and a mountain named Mount Meeker. And I'm sure other Meekers now because of that. But Nathaniel Meeker was an Indian agent. And he was in charge of the Ute Mountain tribe on their reservation. And he was a failure in getting them their rations, and he wanted them to farm. They didn't want to farm. They wanted to race horses. Long story short, there were skirmishes. Some people were killed on both sides. And this was, not sure if it was before or after the Sand Creek Massacre, but it was in the same era. And the politicians in Colorado basically, and the Denver Post and the other newspapers got very rabid anti-Indian and anti-Ute, and they were consequently just forced out. So it's like, sign this treaty to leave, or we will evacuate you. They were sent to northern Utah on the Wasatch, the Uinta Reservation to share with some of the Paiutes. There is a southern Ute reservation down near Pagosa, and another Ute reservation in the very far southwest part of the state. And they managed to not get sent away, but their numbers were very, very small at the time.
It's like the Eastern Band of Cherokee.
Yeah.
Are there any popular spots along the Colorado Trail that retain names from the Ute tribe?
Well, most of them have Americanized names. Like next to Mount Ouray is Mount Chipeta. Chipeta was his wife, and she outlived Ouray for many years, into like her 90s, and she eventually got sent to Utah. Chief Ouray died before the tribe was evicted from the state. But the Cochetopa Hills, that's a Ute name that the Colorado Trail passes through. Offhand, I'm sure there's Cochetoba Creek. There are a number of Indian names still left.
So you mentioned working with the BLM, and you're very passionate about public lands. If you had a crystal ball, given what we know today here, we're recording this at the end of June, where do you think we're headed in the next year, few years? What do you see on the horizon?
I have to say, in my life, which is pretty long, I'm in my 70s, it has been such a bizarre 3 or 4 years. I've never experienced anything like this. We had COVID. COVID was going on during the time I was hiking. We had major forest fires here in Colorado. We had major heat and drought. But on the national scene recently, everything that's been going on, without going into every single issue, public lands is a huge concern to me. There is a part of the Senate bill which proposes to sell off portions of BLM and Forest Service lands. And the sad thing about it is the return on those lands in dollars to the Treasury will really be just a few drops in the bucket compared to the deficit that the tax cuts are going to bring. And it's a pitiful way to try to make up for these unnecessary tax cuts. Wilderness areas, national parks are exempted. Some other more protected lands are exempted. But having worked for BLM and hiked on BLM lands throughout the West, you can go to BLM lands and pretty much have all the solitude that you want. They're not overly crowded like the national parks or even the popular Forest Service places. There are some BLM lands on the Colorado Trail, not a lot, mostly Forest Service. But I'm afraid if it ever happens, it's a precedent that whenever any group of politicians want to and can pass Congress and get the president to sign it, we may see continued erosion of our public lands. So far, that's never really happened. It's unprecedented.
Yeah. Do you have much optimism that we can preserve our public lands as is? Because it seems like there's quite a bit of bipartisan support for not tapping into public lands. It seems like a really small percentage of people actually want this, and that the voices fighting this are actually incredibly loud on both sides. Do you have optimism that will be enough?
So, the House bill originally had a provision like that in there, and it was taken out based on the Montana delegation. This is now in the Senate. They put something like that back in, and Republicans control both houses and the presidency. And so I would say there's a reasonable likelihood that this will happen.
Yeah. I just hope if people want to get reelected and everyone's writing letters, making phone calls, saying that we're not going to vote for you if you are on this side of history, that people will change course.
And if anybody's listening from states other than Colorado, talk to your senators. Tell them this is completely unacceptable to you. Our Colorado senators are opposed. So I can't really do a whole lot, but hopefully some people out in the electronic world somewhere listening will be motivated to call your senators. You need to do it right away. Today's June 23rd, so it's urgent.
Yeah.
When were you doing Boy Scouts? I promise this is irrelevant.
What years?
Yeah, like around when?
From say 57 to 68.
Do you remember what it was like going through the 60s and having like the general vibe around the country be people starting to shift towards conservation, and Rachel Carson and Silent Spring and all these different acts that were coming out with people wanting to start preserving land more. And if you do remember it, can you compare it to kind of what you're seeing in the past decade now and how those two have contrasted? Or
So I have to say, Rachel Carson, if you ever read her book Silent Spring on pesticides, is probably why I became a toxicologist, an environmental toxicologist, more so than human health. So yeah, I mean, she impressed me hugely, as many other conservation writers have also. In about starting about 1969 and 70 is when most of the major environmental legislation we have was passed and signed by Richard Nixon, of all people. The National Environmental Policy Act, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and others. And that was the first Earth Day in 1970. I was in college at the time. It was a huge deal. At the same time, the Vietnam War was going on. There was protests, tons of protests nationwide against the Vietnam War. There were protests and demonstrations for Earth Day. Not protests so much, but celebrations of the first Earth Day. It was huge. It was a time when young people were highly motivated about social causes and protecting the environment. And quite honestly, it doesn't feel the same today.
what do you think changed?
I think our lives have gotten so much more complicated and busy. Young people now are I have two kids. They're a little older. They're 38 and 40. But it's hard to find work. Right now we have the administration who's at war with knowledge and science and facts and colleges and universities. It's very sad. I don't think that's why young people are not as engaged. I think that they're just trying to somehow make a life for themselves. Back in my year, it was also the hippie era and a lot of drugs, although I was never really a drug person. And I think that there was just a greater, an easier attitude. And now I just think, I can't speak for young people really, but I just think they are so wrapped up in their own lives, including my kids, that they don't have time to work on these issues, really.
Interesting. I feel like the young people are the ones that I see caring the most. And I wonder if it's because we might be in different bubbles and different perspectives, but I feel like in my mind it's the people that are like Gen Z and in college and stuff like that are the most, hey, we want this land to be protected, versus, people in office who are just like, let's do something else.
So I've hiked with a lot of young people on these long trails, which is an interesting dynamic, because here I was retired in my 60s, hiking with these 20-somethings and a few people in their early 30s. So I got to know them really well. And I have kids, and I also teach wilderness skills for the Colorado Mountain Club, and have been doing that for 20 years. And we get a lot of young people, and we also get older people. And it's just different, and I can't put my finger on why exactly.
I suppose some of it is just the presence of the internet. I don't think we're hardwired to take on the burdens of the world, and the internet makes us all too capable of absorbing every atrocity that happens, and I think it just becomes overwhelming, and there's a sense of defeat.
And social media has become a poison. It's become a sewer of disinformation and misinformation. I mean, I do Instagram just because I like to share my pictures of the beautiful places I've been. I don't do Facebook or any of the others. But yeah, it's so different.
Yeah. let's shift gears a little bit. Let's get a little sunshine in here. I want to talk
Yes.
more about your through hiking. So obviously you have an extensive background in the outdoors, being in the Boy Scouts as a kid. What got you into the wonderful world of through hiking?
Yeah, so I have a public health background as well, training, and I wanted to do some long distance hiking after I retired, but I wanted to do parts of the Appalachian Trail, and I knew about Lyme disease. I know you've talked about that in your book too, and I wore permethrin treated clothing, and I never had a single tick on me, and I'm getting around to answering that. I should back up and say, since I grew up in Indiana and I've lived in the West all of my adult life, I kind of miss the deciduous forest in a way, like I want to go back and see that again. And I've been briefly into the Great Smokies National Park and Shenandoah and others as a car camping tourist kind of thing. But I wanted to go see parts of the AT, and I thought I would just kind of go to those hot spots, those national parks, and maybe the Whites and maybe Maine. And I started reading more about Lyme disease and how prevalent it is along the AT. And having a public health background, I decided that I would do some science. And I developed a project to do tick monitoring along the way. And I talk about this in my first book, Triple Crown Hiking Adventures. And I pre-selected at random about 40 different locations along the AT from Georgia to Maine. And I collected ticks using a flagging technique. You use a piece of white flannel about 1 meter square and attach it to a pole. I used a trekking pole because I had one. And you just flag it through the shrubbery and the grasses, the understory. And the ticks that will grab a hold of it are then visible on this cloth. And you can pick them off with forceps and you put them into a vial. And I pre-planned to have a laboratory send these to not only identify them to see if they're deer ticks or what species they were, but to also analyze them for Lyme disease and other pathogens. The ticks back east carry 6 or 8 different pathogens, and Lyme disease is the one you hear the most about, but not the only one. And so I got that funded. I got some grant money to do that and send off all of my ticks. And what was the question?
How you got into through hiking, but this is interesting to me too.
Yes. So going back to that question, I was only going to do parts of the AT, and then I decided, well, if I'm going to do a more rigorous project.
Well, I want to interrupt you. I want to go back to the deer tick thing. So what was the takeaway from?
Can I come back?
Yeah, sure.
So I decided to do the whole AT and do the tick survey on the whole AT.
Got it.
And that's what kind of got me into the long distance thing. I had done before that. I had done the Colorado Trail and done the John Muir Trail, but I really hadn't planned until then to do the long distance hike. So anyway, I did it, and we could talk about it or whatever you like, but the results did show some Lyme disease, and I found out basically, and I got this article published in Park Science, which is a science magazine that the National Park Service puts out. And basically in the mid-Atlantic states that I passed through in the earlier parts of the summer, so starting with Virginia up through Pennsylvania, I was picking up ticks, not before and not after. Before it was probably too early and too cold because I started in April, and after I was probably too high in elevation in the New England states. And so I was picking up ticks in there, usually under 2,000 feet in elevation. And so that was probably the biggest take-home lesson is that's where you need to be most concerned, particularly those states at those elevations at that time of year.
How many ticks did you catch?
There were not a lot, maybe 40 or 50. I have to say, I hiked with this one guy. He had a German Shepherd dog, And this guy who owned the dog also was a very hairy individual.
Uh-oh.
And it turns out that the dog and this guy just got hundreds of ticks on them. And we would stay in the shelters on the AT, and every night he would go through his dog's fur, pulling off these ticks.
In the shelter?
In the shelter, and I'm going to sleep in my tent tonight.
No one said anything? No one was like, hey.
I did. He was a nice guy. His name was Occupy. And just a quick note about him. He was a veteran from Iraq or Iran wars, or not, Iraq, I think, Afghanistan, one of those two, not Iran. And he had gone back to school on the GI Bill to get into medical school, and he had gotten through residency, or most of it. He had $250,000 of debt, and he just threw it all away, his education and his debt, because he didn't see any way he could afford to pay it, and he decided he didn't want to be a doctor. And that was like pretty amazing to me. It's like, what a waste. And I hope, Occupy, if you're listening somewhere, I hope everything worked out for you. I did keep in touch with him for a while. But there were alternatives he could have done to help pay for the debt. If you go to work for the military or the public health service as a physician, they will pay your debts off for you, but you have a commitment of like 6 years or 8 years.
Huh.
But yeah.
Usually, if I see a tick on trail, I'm terrified of it. Do you think that you caught them by surprise and these ticks were terrified of you?
No, but I had these little tick information cards, and I just passed them out to everybody that I saw along the way. And here's another little story on the AT. So this young girl, probably early 20s, we're hiking along, and one morning she says, I think I have a tick on me. And I looked on her leg, and sure enough, it was the little juvenile ticks that are the biggest problems, and they're the size of a poppy seed. And you really can't even tell it's a tick unless you have a magnifying glass, or you pull it off and you see legs and so forth. Anyway, I told her how to remove it. Take your forceps, very carefully grab it behind the mouth parts, pull slowly out. I gave her my forceps. I said, do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it? I'll do it, she said. So she takes the forceps and she yanks it out. I'm going, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. But
Now
she's
we'll
kind of
have to
like you.
take the
She's kind of panicking, you know.
What do you mean, like me?
Well, you said you just.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were just making an
Might have been a direct
observation.
quote.
It's been an interesting week.
Well, at least we can't tell if you're blushing.
No, you can't. Oh, should we plug the YouTube here?
Yeah, sure.
If you're watching us on YouTube, I am the color orange. My bachelorette is in about 36 hours. We get on our flight for Tulum. The forecast says we will be getting 5 days of thunderstorms. Yay. So I got a spray tan because I didn't know until someone in passing was like, oh, what's the weather going to be like? And I stooped. Oh, it's a spray tan girl. She was like, what's the weather going to be like? And so I checked.
Yeah.
And I was like, I regret this.
Yeah.
But it has to sit for 10 hours before I can like rinse it off, and it's darker when it's sitting before you rinse it. So I'm perfectly orange. I also am not supposed to let my skin touch my skin, so I've been sitting like this, and I have napkins under my thighs.
Yeah.
And I'm not supposed to sweat.
Yeah.
And I'm sweating.
Good. It's good that we addressed it.
So if you're not watching on YouTube, you should be.
Yeah.
All that to bring it back.
Yeah.
Ticks.
Okay.
Panicky.
Back to ticks. Have you been following the Lyme disease vaccine trials at all?
Not recently. I was pretty active. So I did my hike on the AT in 2013, and I understand you did yours in 11. Yeah. Okay. And I actually worked with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and Insect Shield, which makes permethrin-treated clothing. And we shot a video about Lyme disease and tick disease prevention, and I think they still have it on their website. And I haven't done a lot with it lately. Nothing. I don't live back in the east, So I've kind of gotten away from that. I don't know, maybe you know more.
Yeah, I don't think the last I saw is I think they're in phase 3 of the trials of it, and I think if it passes, it would be to market by like the end of next year, early 27. I think there's still a lot of ifs.
Surprised that funding hasn't been pulled.
Why is that?
Vaccine.
Yeah. You mean because of all the
RFK?
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get
There used to be a dog vaccine, and they pulled that
Did there?
a decade or more ago.
It's because there wasn't enough demand for it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it was economic.
The dogs were complaining.
Apparently. It's tough to tell when a dog has Lyme disease. Okay, so AT 2013, you were doing that as part of a study, obviously. Did you know that you were, no pun intended, bitten by the thru-hiking bug and you wanted to keep going?
Well, so not until I got about maybe halfway through, was my first even consideration of that. I was in, I don't know what state that was. Maybe, I don't know. Might have been New York, a little more than halfway. And I met this guy on the trail who was a Triple Crowner, an older guy like me. And he basically said, once you finish this trail, he says, you're going to be hooked and you'll be back. And, you may go on to do all 3 of the trails of the Triple Crown. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't have time for that. And too old, whatever. But it really evolved for me to be a special part of my life, honestly. People around me kind of think I'm pretty weird. I teach all these students in wilderness trekking school and mentioned that I'm a Triple Crowner, and I told them I've hiked probably 15,000 miles since I retired, and they just think I'm, totally weird and nuts. And for them, a lot of them, backpacking is like hike 4 miles up to a lake and spend a couple nights and hike out. And I just think that the whole culture of long-distance hiking is you can get deeper into the wilderness. You can get away from crowded trailheads. For the most part, some trails, like the John Muir Trail, which is one of my favorites, is pretty crowded. But even on that trail, you can hike all day and only meet a few people, oftentimes. So different than the crowding around the really popular places. I'm going back this summer. I tried to get, this is a whole nother set of stories, but I did part of it last year, and I think I got altitude sickness for the first time in my life. And I had to get off the trail at Independence. And this year we're going back and going to try to finish all the parts I didn't finish last year. And I tried to get entry in Happy Isles, which is Yosemite Valley, or at Mount Whitney in the lottery. It's just impossible. It's just, we had 2 of us doing it multiple days. It's next to impossible. But this year we're going back on a side trail, which is more doable, through the Inyo National Forest. To get a permit, you have to have a permit. I think so. Your original question is what kind of got you into through hiking. It's just the people I met. I started the AT, didn't know anybody, met up with some pretty cool people, hiked with one guy for over half of the way, young guy from Tufts College back near Boston, really good guy, but hiked with a lot of other people too, and mostly younger people, and really enjoyed talking with them. And on the PCT also I hooked up with a bunch of younger men and women. And, well, I shouldn't use that word.
Sorry, I'm immature.
Didn't even cross my mind until Sean gave her a little beepus laugh there.
I'm dating myself here. I met up with, how's that? And we hiked together for
First one sounded like a better story.
Yeah. So that's enjoyable. I'm still in touch with some of those people, and now they've gone on to get married and have children, and their kids are already 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years old now. So that's kind of fun to watch that happen. I have grandchildren, I hope to get them out. One's 8 and one's only 3. So I might have some hope of getting the 8-year-old backpacking before I have to give it up. But
You said you were in your 70s?
yes,
How old specifically?
I'm closer to 74 than 73.
Yeah. Oh, you look awesome for your age. So
Thanks.
that means you hiked the AT when you were 62?
I
61?
think 61ish.
Yeah. What advice do you have for somebody that wants to get into long distance backpacking post retirement?
So I've given lots of talks on that subject, mostly to the mountain club that I'm active in. A lot of it is that I talk about is ultralight hiking.
What's your base weight?
Depends on where I'm going and when. On the John Muir Trail, I have to carry a bear can, so I'm going to be about, and I bought a heavier, larger tent. I had a Z-Pax duplex. I still have it. But for 2 people, it's a little tight. So I got a big Agnes, which is a little larger tent, a little heavier. So I'm going to be about 15 pounds with the bear can and the bigger tent. But I'd like to be around 10 to 12.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying one of the keys is to stay ultralight, and then I kind of derailed us. What other tips would you offer someone?
When you're older, you need every advantage you can get, believe me. You don't recover as quickly. When I was hiking with some of these younger people, they were really strong hikers. And they could back-to-back 25, even 30 miles a day. And I kind of hung with them mostly. But I would leave camp earlier than they would. And then they would pass me. And we would maybe meet for snacks, certainly for lunch. And then I'd leave lunch earlier than they would, so forth. And then we'd leapfrog each other, and we'd kind of figure out where we'd camp roughly at the end of the day.
That was my PCT.
Pardon me?
That was my PCT. I'm very slow.
Yeah.
It's a fun routine.
And I'm not speed anymore. My wife is faster than I am. She's a dynamo. One question you had was really, it's a complicated answer, what I liked about through hiking. And actually in my first book, Triple Crown Hiking Adventures, I asked a lot of hikers that same question. Why do you do it? And I got a lot of answers. I get a lot of satisfaction is not quite the right word. We have such busy, complicated lives today. Passwords, and I know social media for a lot of people, and paying bills, and just so many things, jobs going on, and families, and difficulties in meeting financial needs and so forth. I think it's just great to get away from it all and get away in a forest. There's a thing called the nature fix. Maybe you've heard about it. A gal named Florence Williams wrote a whole book about it. Basically, scientists have been studying people who are in the outdoors, even for only a half an hour, 45 minutes. Their blood pressure decreases, their cortisol levels decrease. Cortisol is a hormone that indicates stress on your body. And it doesn't take a lot to be out for that to improve your mental and physical health. And so it's kind of and I think John Muir recognized this over 100 years ago, is, some of his famous quotes about climb the mountains, get their good tidings, let your cares fall away like leaves and so forth. And it's completely true to me. I feel so much better about myself while I'm out there hiking, and I like to hike all day, day after day. And planning the logistics, I enjoy doing that too.
So 10 years ago or so, I felt like my ability to pull miles was just relative to my fitness. Like, I didn't really worry about recovery. I'm now to the age where, like, a day after a hard workout, and I feel sluggish the next day. Do you have any sort of rules for yourself about not pushing yourself too hard in a given day so you can maximize your output over a longer stretch of time?
So I tell people when I give talks is I've made all these mistakes. Is to start out too many miles too early, too fast. Basically, your cardio is one of the things that you develop first, maybe a few weeks on the trail. But it takes longer to strengthen your tendons and your ligaments, muscles, and the bottoms of your feet, quite honestly, so you don't get blisters. I never really had a blister problem, but I had other foot problems, a lot of them, it seems like. And I had every overuse injury you can think of. And so as I got along further into long-distance hiking, I kind of realized I needed to start out slower and maybe only do 10, 12 miles a day to begin with and build up. And I also do training. So my wife, Ann, is been really, so if she ever hears this, she'll be mad, but she's really been obsessed with training. And we've been out hiking with packs like every other day. She works part-time, so whenever she has days off, tomorrow we'll probably be hiking at altitude with full packs. We do a lot of training, a lot of hiking. I hike probably 4 or 5 days a week, 5 to 15 miles a day, and
You're
keeps
so
me
much
healthy.
better in shape than I am. I'm not kidding.
I am in pretty good
I
shape.
wish I
right
had
now.
good. I wish I had time to do that
That's-
many hiking.
And I'm retired, I get it, you know. That's why I've noticed on these long trails that they're mostly younger people who don't have those big commitments of work or family or mortgages, or older people who are retired who can afford to take the time. And I wanted to do it while I was still healthy enough to do it. And I think it's keeping me healthy.
Do you think you have a leg up by having the time to stay in shape the way that you can, and by maybe not being as caught up with going fast as someone who's fresh out of college might? Like, do you think that there's an advantage for older hikers on the trail where they're better at taking it slower and they're better at training in the off time?
I think that's probably mostly true. On the AT, I met some older hikers that they might have thought they were going to through hike, but they'd never made it. And I met section hikers who were out on their vacations, older guys, and some women that were not in great shape. A lot of people start the AT and they're not in shape, and they don't know much about backpacking, honestly. They're just unprepared. And that's why many of them drop out. You probably know that. So, if we have a chance, I would like to change, if I can,
You can.
some of the conversation
Sure.
towards the major thrust of this book
Yeah.
on the Colorado Trail.
Can I see it?
Um,
You're touching things.
So, and you can stop me at any point and I'll answer questions, more specific questions. But I first did the Colorado Trail in about 2007 or 8. I can't remember exactly. But I did it in sections. I was still working then, so I could only get away for weekends or shorter vacations. And I understand you did in a section hike arrangement too. Logistics are difficult.
Yeah, I always tell people don't do that.
Yeah, it's
Take
hard
it from me.
unless
I'm
you have
stubborn.
a dedicated partner who's willing to drive you.
Even then, if you like them, don't put them through that. Right? Like if you're dating someone you hate, I feel like I've said this sentence recently, but if you're dating someone you hate, great opportunity.
Well, I'm divorced now, so that might have something to do to it.
It's like how to lose a guy in 10 days. Tell him you want to section hike the Colorado Trail and you want him to drive.
Well, I had various people participating in that. But anyway, so that was the first time I did the Colorado Trail. And I went back and did it again in 2020 and 21 during the pandemic. And it also was a time, especially 2020, of severe forest fires in Colorado. And as I went along on the trail, and maybe you noticed this, but I saw a lot more forest mortality than I did before. And I have an environmental science background. I was a scientist. I still consider myself a scientist. And in my BLM work, Zach mentioned the eco-regional assessments that I managed. We did a lot of work with climate change, and we were trying to figure out how to protect biological resources in the face of changing climate. And that really got me more and more interested in climate change. And that was back in 2010, 11, 12. Here we are in 2025, more than a decade later. And I did the Colorado Trail again. I saw this forest mortality. And I had kind of thought about doing some kind of a little book or an article on my second hike on the CT. And I decided, besides just being like a typical hiker journal of adventure and what we did and what we saw and so forth, that I would try to weave in the current science of climate change in Colorado and how it's affecting our mountain ecosystems. So I did a lot of research, pulled up a lot of professional papers, and tried to extract them in such a way that, or summarize them in such a way that I could weave them into the fabric of the story of the hike, and also try to reach people who are non-scientists and impress upon them some of the facts of climate change and what it's already doing to our Colorado mountains. And so I got a publisher, University of Colorado Press, picked it up for me and helped me through it, and we got it published a little over a year ago. And I've done book talks and library talks and other talks for organizations, mostly several of the Colorado Mountain Club, and I guess I see it as a science communication tool to kind of wave the red flags that things are changing out there. They really are. And I have some stats that I'd like to
hit us with the stats.
Can I pause here before we get to the stats? I do want to get to the stats. You mentioned one of the inspirations for pursuing the book was the increase in forest mortality. Is that due to the Asian beetle?
So most of the mortality that we have in Colorado, certainly wildfire, and I'll get to that. But along the Colorado Trail, most of the mortality is spruce beetle. And it's primarily in the southwestern part of the state. So if you've ever driven over Monarch Pass or Wolf Creek Pass, especially Wolf Creek, most of the forest is dead. North of I-70, it's mountain pine beetle. They're related species, but not the same species. In the southwestern part of the state, it's spruce beetle, and it's related to climate.
So that was my question. How is that related to climate?
So basically, where the beetles come in is when the trees are most stressed when it's droughty. We've been in a 1,200-year mega drought. Scientists know that based on, obviously, proxy data sources. So tree rings can get us back maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years, and not just living trees, but dead trees. A dead tree above tree line can stand or lay there on the ground for hundreds of years. And so they can core into the old trees as well as the living trees to get a history of several thousand years. There are some trees, bristlecone pines, have lived up to 5,000 years. So there's a long amount of data there, but also even more to get back or to get corroborating data. There's sediment cores in lakes that have been used. There are glacier cores that can be used to date temperature and greenhouse gas concentrations. And so altogether, there's this history, scientific history, showing that we've been in this mega drought for over 1,200 years. Interestingly, some of the some old wood coring was done in what we used to call the Anasazi Indian ruins. Now they're called the ancestral Pueblans. in some of the rafters in the kivas that had been there for up to 1,000 years. So the mega drought, basically, getting back to your question, stresses the trees over if it's multiple years in sequence and severe. And what the tree's defenses are is they try to, the pine beetles and the spruce beetles bore into the bark. And they get inside there, the adults do, and they lay their eggs. And the eggs develop into larvae, and they consume more in the wood. And then they develop into adults, and they fly back out. So what the tree tries to do to defend itself is to flush them out with lots of pine sap. And in order to do that, the tree has to have adequate water sources. And if it can't get enough water, not only to support its leafy canopy, but to flush out these insect pests, it will die. And so it's a combination of stress making them more vulnerable to insect pests. And some trees die even without insect pests, just plain from heat and drought. If you think of a tree, it's really just a pump from a physical standpoint. So a tree is basically taking water from the subsurface, and it's being pumped up through the tree to the very top, out the leaves. And the leaves have little stoma on them, little openings. And it's called transpiration, and that's what plants do. And that big pump also pulls up water for the physical, chemical, biological processes, and also pulls up nutrients for the tree sugars. Well, the sugars are made by photosynthesis, but it pulls up other nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus out of the soil. So if there's not enough water, the pump doesn't work and the tree dies. So that's basically what's happening. And some of the studies are showing through the climate projections. And when I give a talk in real person, I show some graphs. But the Colorado Climate Center has projected that by 2100, end of the century, compared to the beginning of the 20th century, that the temperature will probably have increased by 12 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. That doesn't sound like a lot. Right now we're about 2.5 degrees statewide and about 4 degrees in the western slope. That is enough to cause ecological change. It doesn't all happen at once. It's a combination of trees dying from pests and drought and wildfires. In 2020, we lost 700,000 acres of forest. And if that were to happen every year, it's just not sustainable. All of our forests would go in a few decades. So that's one of the take-home facts. Another one I want to mention, and maybe I'll bounce it back to you guys. I have tons of stuff here, but it'd be boring for me just to recite it all. But some of the studies are showing that, make sure I get my dates right, in 35 to 60 years, scientists are projecting that Colorado's snowpack will be low to no snowpack. Imagine the consequences of that. We rely on our snowpack, humans do, as this great place of water storage in the sky that gradually releases snow melt to streams, which fill our reservoirs slowly through the spring and summer. And if it all comes off at once, and that's what would happen, if there's no snowpack, it's coming as rain and it's always flowing away. If we can't save it in our reservoirs, we're going to have a real difficult time with our agriculture and our cities, water supplies. Skiers are highly concerned. Even the Department of Defense is concerned about a lot of climate change issues.
So earlier I asked you about your level of optimism versus pessimism in terms of saving public lands. What is your level of optimism in terms of at least slowing or reversing the effects of climate change?
So I have to say that I'm an independent, so I don't have to say, that I'm a particular affiliated with any party, but Joe Biden passed several initiatives that were important to get us on the path of reducing greenhouse gases. Ultimately, that's what we have to do. There's other things that can be done, and I kind of wrap up my talks usually with what we can do. But we have a new administration that is basically throwing out everything climate-related and a lot of other things that happened during the previous administration. So, for instance, one of the things I can do, what you really only have control of, seriously, is yourself. And if you take steps to reduce your own carbon footprint, if everybody did that worldwide, we could probably save our ecosystems in some semblance of the way they are now. We've already blown past the Paris Accords for trying to maintain worldwide adaptation to climate change. And carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere for thousands of years. It's not going to be reversed soon. These changes are baked in. And with the new administration, previously I bought an electric car. I put in a heat pump last year, both with tax credits. I put in a induction stove, electric. I'm trying to get off of fossil fuels totally in my life. And if we all could do that, we would be much better off. But all of those incentives are gone or going away. I don't fly as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And I am flying on my trip to the John Muir Trail because my wife has limited number of days off, and so we're going to fly. But you can buy these emission credits, carbon emission credits, and basically it's intended to neutralize or equal your amount of carbon that you would have otherwise generated by flying, which one coast-to-coast trip in aircraft is like driving a car for a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a huge amount of carbon, even if you're in an airplane with 100, 200, 300 other people. So we're doing that. The idea they do is they plant trees and do other things to enhance carbon sequestration. Obviously, other things we can... I guess your question is, how do I feel about it? I feel pretty pessimistic, honestly. Like I've mentioned earlier, I have 2 grandkids. Both of them will probably live to see the end of the century. And the forests that we know out there now will not survive that. That climate would be equivalent to Tucson or Phoenix. And that forest is going to die if we don't do anything. And it's not just Colorado, it's worldwide. And people ask, well, what's going to be there? And we don't really know, but if we do nothing, it's going to revert to grassland and shrubland. The trees can't survive with the heat and dryness. It's already happening in the burns, the big fires that we've had. Have been studied by scientists for years now. The Hayman fire burned in 2002. Up until recently, it was the largest fire in Colorado at over 200,000 acres. It's just southwest of Denver, about 50 miles. I've been there several times. There are no conifers regenerating in there. And they tried to even plant seedlings. And what happens is there's no shading, it's hot, it's dry, and the seedlings get cooked. They get just basically baked away. The temperature of the soil can exceed 120 degrees, even 130 degrees. And if you have a seedling whose roots are only 3 or 4 inches deep, it can't survive that. And also those kind of trees have large seeds. They don't wind disperse. The only way they can move is by birds. Clark's nutcracker, Steller's jays can carry seeds, but that's not enough. Probably what we're going to see in the coming decades is forest managers are going to probably do assisted migration, where they'll be bringing in more pinyon juniper. Perhaps I think we'll see a lot of sagebrush take over at the higher elevations. It's hard to know exactly. I have a quote in my book. If there's time, like a couple of sentences I'd like to read.
If you've got a flag, pull it open.
Yeah, I have to find the page number.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I think off topic to the grand thesis here, but I'm just curious to get your opinion. Do you have any level of optimism about like technological solutions to solving the carbon in the atmosphere problem?
so there's conversation about geoengineering. And it comes down to things like cloud seeding on a global basis. You get more clouds, you get more shading that way, you get maybe more precipitation. Personally, I don't like to mess with Mother Nature like that. It's been going on in spot basis for years, and it seems to maybe work a little bit. But globally, I don't think it's going to help. I just think that we're looking at adaptation now more than anything else, is living with the problem to the best of our, in the best way possible. And ultimately, we've got to cut greenhouse gases. And it's not just carbon dioxide, it's methane. And BLM is a huge source of methane nationwide because we have so much oil and gas development. In years past, the methane releases were pretty much unregulated. Methane is 30 times, at least 30, sometimes I've heard as much as 80 times more powerful than one molecule of carbon dioxide as far as depleting, well, not depleting, but contributing to the greenhouse effect. So we need better controls on oil and gas development. Personally, I'd like to see oil and gas development stop on public lands.
Quick aside, if you want to look for your quote. I finished reading a book called The Age of Wood. Less riveting than you would think. I was really hoping it'd be a little more exciting than it was, but it does talk about the Little Ice Age, which was like around the time where everything got really cold, the potato famine. People moved over
1850s.
and like filled the AT. Yeah. And it examined deforestation as like playing into a contributing factor, and reforestation as well. Super fascinating. It's like chapter 13 and 14-ish if you want to go to a bookstore and sit there and read it. It was just a drier book than I thought, but this is reminding me of that, and I pulled up my notes, and it's really interesting to read about if you're someone who likes reading about trees. And
one thing that's interesting is on the Appalachian Trail, did you know most of that whole Appalachian forest was deforested?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to believe when you're hiking through it.
Mm-hmm.
But now it is so dense. It's happened. I mean, it was converted to farmland primarily, and they were poor farms. They weren't very productive. And in the South, they tried to grow things like cotton and tobacco in the mountains. It didn't work very well.
And corn too.
Yeah, and up north, everything was so rocky, and that's why as you hike on the AT and you're going through the woods, you see these stone walls that were, 200 years old. They're still out. Those were walls to keep their cows in or their cows out, one or the other of their fields. And now it's just deep forest, and that's just a really cool reforestation thing that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened in some other places around the world, but the deforestation now going on, especially in other countries, is far outweighs the reforestation that's happening.
They talk about that. I'm reading Tangled Roots right now, which is another great book on the AT, but they talk about how when wilderness became a thing and designating wilderness areas became a thing, most of the spots were out west because that was where things were considered pristine and untrammeled and untouched. But on the eastern side of the country, they had to kind of rethink in terms of the Appalachian Trail what they considered as wilderness, because they couldn't do wilderness in the same way because so much of it was multi-use land before it became trail.
Right.
Tangled Roots is a really good, really, really interesting book around that.
Yep. I like to talk in my book and elsewhere about the Wilderness Act and how it came to be and how successful it's been, how many wilderness areas there are, over 800 now. I think I've gone, just on the PCT, you go through like 40 or 50 of them. Likewise on the Continental Divide Trail. And I'm surprised how much wilderness there was on the Appalachian Trail.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
so
official wilderness?
Yes.
Really? More than the
Official.
100 miles?
Oh, yeah.
Where else?
It's been a few years.
I'll help you.
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you that.
Okay. I'll report back in a sec.
Do you have the quote? Otherwise, I have a different question.
I'll find it hopefully before we finish.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I want to talk more specifics about what the future of the CT looks like, and so I guess also a timeline. What are we looking at in terms of the trail being without forest? Is this?
So I will read it. I do have a quote that's kind of pertinent to that. It's the very end of my book, the last paragraph. I basically say, I hope the forest and the trail will be there for my grandchildren and that they can find beauty, peace, and renewal like I did. I also hope they appreciate the beauty of the complexity of the ecosystems that sustain us and that we acted in time to save most of our forests and wildlife. I hope to be back again. I think the forest is going to change. It's inevitable. It's happening already. I talk in the book a little bit about, so we have all these various tree species in Colorado. In the lower montane forest, we have mostly ponderosa pine and lots of Douglas fir. And in the upper montane, we have lodgepole pine and limber pine. And then we get into subalpine, and we have spruce and fir and also bristlecone pine. So I think what we're going to see is a moving of all of those. Those are ecosystems or plant communities moving upward in elevation, either naturally or by help from humans. There are a lot of volunteer organizations that are out doing tree planting and other work on public lands who would love probably to help do that. You know, plant more limber pine, for instance, or plant more spruce fir, perhaps moving lodgepole up. The thing about lodgepole pine, you probably know, is unlike all the other forest types we have, it's the most fire adapted of all. So it loves fire. Burn me down, I don't care. What happens is their cones are serotinous cones, and they really only open up after a fire and release their seeds. Other years when there's no fire, the cones just sit on the ground and the cones don't open and the seeds just go to waste. Or they sit there maybe until the next fire, which could be years or decades. And then if the seed bed is not totally incinerated in a high severity fire, they rapidly reproduce. If you've been to Yellowstone, since the 88 fires, and I've been there many times, the lodgepole pine are already 30 feet tall and pretty darn dense, pretty much like they were before the fire. On the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park, we had the East Troublesome Creek fire in 2020. Lots of lodgepole pine there burned. Well, the whole forest burned, but I've been in some parts where it was high severity and nothing is really growing except for lots of wildflowers, which is just tremendous wildflowers, but no conifers. And then other parts I've been to that weren't so severe, little lodgepole pine seedlings are coming up like crazy because they're still, it's high enough elevation, they get a fair amount of moisture. And so the drought hasn't been so difficult. And since that fire, we've had some pretty wet years. And so it's been good for regeneration there.
What are some outcomes of forests becoming a larger percentage of lodgepole pines? Is there, what are the downstream effects of that to habitats?
If you hike through much lodgepole pine, you'll see the understory is almost zilch. The biologists use the words depauperate. Remember the prince and the pauper story? The pauper is a very poor person. So if you're a biologist, depauperate means they have nothing. There's nothing there. So lodgepoles aren't my favorite forest. I mean, you get these skinny little trees all packed in together. I like a more biodiverse forest. Great Smokies National Park, they have 600 kinds of trees. It's like nirvana if you're a biologist or if you're a plant scientist or forester even. So the forest is going to change, and it's going to go away. And biologists use the term novel ecosystems are going to develop. Like in the Hayman fire burn right now, the burn scar, and you went through the Buffalo Creek burn on the Colorado Trail. It's just shrubs and wildflowers. On the Buffalo Creek burn, you go about a whole day's worth of hike, maybe 15 or more miles. No trees, and it's hot and it's exposed, but it's still kind of green because you get a lot of shrubs coming up. Aspen will come up, they resprout from roots. Gamble oak will come up, it resprouts from roots, but the pine trees don't. And in Boulder County, a bunch of wildfires have happened over the years up there. In coniferous forests, there's no revegetation of conifers. So been a lot of papers published on that, and I cite some of those in the book. And it's not just Colorado, it's the entire Rockies, pretty much. We're officially part of the Southern Rockies in Colorado, but especially in the Southern Rockies and especially in the lower elevation forests, the ponderosa pine forests are going to really decline. On the PCT and on the John Muir Trail, someone was asking me about the trees there. They've had mortality too from drought, but the trees are gigantic compared to our trees in Colorado, and especially if you hike the PCT up into Oregon and Washington. But it's not unusual to see trees that are hundreds of feet tall, and that are 20 to 30 feet in diameter, like it would take 4 or 5 people to reach around. There's just, and even up at the timberline, the foxtail pines are huge, and the western cedar or junipers rather are huge, and the forests in the Sierras and the Cascades they're at risk too. And what a treasure they are right now, though.
I've got my list. Shall I send you off with it?
List of
Wilderness areas along the AT.
Oh yeah.
We moved on, but
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
We start off at mile 20, Blood Mountain Wilderness. And then immediately goes into Raven Cliffs Wilderness, and then immediately into Mark Trail Wilderness. We're rapid firing this. And then we skip a bit, and then we go into Trail Mountain Wilderness, and then there's Southern Nantahala Wilderness, and then you go in and out a couple times. And then you have nothing for a little bit, and then you're going, and you're going, and you're going, and you're going, and you're going. And then you have Samson Mountain Wilderness, which is off trail north of Rocky Fork State Park. And then after that, you have Unaka Mountain Wilderness, which follows the trail to the north. And then you have Pond Mountain Wilderness, Big Laurel Branch Wilderness. And then you have Lewis Fork Wilderness. And then you have Little Wilson Creek Wilderness. And then you go back into the Lewis Fork Wilderness.
I think we get the point.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff.
There is a lot of wilderness.
Yeah, a lot of wilderness. Yeah.
Now you know.
I was impressed watching the signs as you go through.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't want to end it on a sad note, but I think maybe we have to, just based on your work. Yeah. If you got something uplifting.
So I have a little slide here on what you can do. So my first one, it's like kind of a not applicable anymore, but it was when I wrote this, it was support government in enacting stronger laws and policies to cut greenhouse gases. So that one is not happening right now. I think we'll find our way back there. It's only a matter of time.
Pendulum.
Exactly. And in my years, I've seen the pendulum go back and forth many times. There's a lot of talk about fire mitigation and thinning. It's really controversial. I don't think we have time to go into all of the aspects of it, but it's expensive, and it's really only warranted in what we call the WUI, which is the wildland-urban interface. The lower elevations like where the suburbs have moved up into the foothills. Like I lived in the Wooey on Lookout Mountain at one time. Patchwork ownership is difficult in the Wooey, trying to get all the owners, including the county and local ownership, to work together. Prescribed fire is effective, probably the best thing to do for reducing fire threat, but it's also risky, and land managers are risk averse. They really don't want to do prescribed fire if they don't have to. Hikers on the Colorado Trail and elsewhere we have to observe fire restrictions. I've seen people burning when there are fire bans on, including some damn big fires, 6-8 feet of flames, campfires, and sparks going off into the forest. That's just unacceptable. I personally don't build campfires as a long-distance hiker. I'll do it when I'm car camping with family or something, but in a fire grate, fires they cause forest fires for one thing, but they're unsightly. People leave all kinds of trash in the stone fire rings, and they're just kind of disgusting. So leave no trace is real important. Support advocacy groups to protect public lands and oppose development of public lands. So there are many organizations involved, environmental organizations, a whole host of them, many of which I am a member of or I donate to.
Do you want to call out maybe a couple that?
Well, Sierra Club is one, Center for Biological Diversity, Wild Earth Guardians. There are a lot of them. Wild Connections, I was on their board for a few years. There are many others. Wildland Restoration Volunteers out of Boulder, Longmont area do a lot of good stuff. Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado, just a lot. In regard to them is like, go help out, be a volunteer, go do stuff, go plant things or help maintain trails. I think all of us as users of the trails should have a responsibility to help. In reducing your carbon footprint, I've talked about that. Educate people. That's kind of what I see myself doing in my retirement. I teach these classes for Colorado Mountain Club every year. I've been doing it for 20 years. I wrote the book. I try to do every opportunity that comes down to talk about climate change and the future. And certainly voting, I'm sorry. That's one thing you can control is your vote. I have 2 kids, one votes and one doesn't. And it's kind of sad to me that I have a child who doesn't really feel compelled to vote. And I think it's not really apathy. I think that person has just kind of decided it's a lost cause. I'm sorry, this is not hopeful, Zach.
No, it's okay. It's honest.
I am very, I guess, politically active, and I hope listeners out there will do everything they can to help protect our public lands, especially.
Yeah. Well, thank you for fighting the good fight, for being a communicator of these things, and just being a force for positivity. We are contractually obligated to ask our sponsorship question, the Stay Salty question, presented by Element. Use our code drinklmnt.com/trek to get a free sample pack with your order. Do you have a particular hot take, maybe an unpopular opinion in the world of backpacking or the outdoors at large?
An unpopular opinion?
Yeah, or maybe an unconventional opinion.
About backpacking? And
can be anything in the realm of the outdoors.
Well, we have a president who basically took credit for putting out the Pacific Palisades fire where my wife grew up by turning the water taps on. And he also says that we need to clean the forests and rake the leaves. And so that shows the level of ignorance that we're dealing with. And that's, I guess, maybe an unpopular opinion.
Depends on who you're talking to. But yeah, thank you so much for, again, being a force for positivity, spreading the gospel here. Where should people go to get the book?
It's published by University Press of Colorado, but it's also available on Amazon and in bookstores and libraries.
Cool. And anything else you want to plug where people can keep up with you?
I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity, and also giving me a chance to write some articles and blogs. I'm going to write a little bit after my John Muir hike this summer, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah. And I should mention, we featured this in a prior Trek propaganda, but you wrote a piece about basically the effect of climate change on the JMT. So for people that want more bad news in a different region, we will include that one in the show notes as well. But Karl, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Thanks.
Thank you.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. This one is I've Dreaded Every Hike I've Ever Done, But I Go Anyway by Kelly Floro. Kelly reveals a feeling many people experience before a thru hike, the intense second-guessing and anxiety she feels before setting out. She explores the psychological challenges that arise pre-hike and highlights the power of pre-commitment strategies like announcing your plans publicly and booking the logistics to lock you in financially. Ultimately, she reflects on how her long-distance backpacking trips have been some of the best experiences of her life, offering inspiration to nervous, aspiring hikers not to let the pre-trail doubts hold them back. Do you get that feeling before your hikes?
Pre-trail doubts?
Like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, basically all the demons that come into your head before anything.
No, not for the big ones. For the big ones, like, I've kind of closed out all of their plans, so I'm more anxious to just get started already. It's kind of like a waiting game towards the end where, like, 72 hours beforehand, I'll start to think I'm not hiking. Currently, I'm just on 3-0 days, and then I have my next stretch to hike. Like, there's a point where it starts to feel like I'm already on a 0 day.
Yeah.
Not just still at home, not having hiked yet.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like, just bring it on already. With the shorter ones where I'm wedging them into PTO, those ones that I start to get some pre-dread where it's like, do I really want to do this? Like, I'm tired, work's tiring, this is my time off. Wouldn't I just rather catch up on sleep? Like, there's that pull of, hey, don't you actually want to rejuvenate yourself and, like, catch up and, refresh versus beating your body up in the woods and getting bad sleep and coming back and going straight back to work. But that's only ever on the shorter ones.
Yeah, I guess it's been a long time since I've done a very long hike. But I get anxious before. It doesn't really even matter. And day hikes doesn't apply, but like I'd say anything like longer than 3 nights, I definitely get anxious about it. Like, am I forgetting something? And sometimes I do. Like, am I going to enjoy it this time? Which is irrational because I enjoy it every single time. But like, legitimately, the demon comes out and is very loud, especially like a week before a hike. It always makes me second guess myself. I've done this enough now that I know not to put any stock into that. Like, it's just a thing that my brain does to me. It sounds like Kelly is obviously similar in this way. But yeah, I thought I was excited to share this article because I didn't know that other people went through it to the extent that I do. And now I'm guessing that a lot of people probably feel that way.
Well, I think it's all the more reason to, like, fully commit if you're going to do a hike, because the times it's been harder for me was when I wasn't fully in the hike because I had a job to come back to, an apartment to come back to, bills to come back to, all that stuff, versus the AT when I put all my things in a storage unit. I had no rent. I had no job. I had closed out all those things. I didn't have anything pulling me back from starting that. It was like, oh, I should do this instead. Oh, I should do that instead. Or, oh, I'm dreading going out there. It was like, I'm bored here because I've got a car and nothing else, and there's nothing for me to do while I wait.
Yeah.
So
go all in.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cut everyone off. Close your bank accounts. Sell your stuff.
Change your name.
Yeah.
Burn your fingerprints.
Yeah, to hell with it.
Yeah, all that fun stuff. All right. Question of the day. This is yours, so I'm going to let you describe it.
And I didn't know if you would understand it because you don't watch popular films.
No.
But it's a Harry Potter reference, and it says, when you're a hiker, what are the 4 houses are you sorted into?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a photo that shows the 4 house emblems from Harry Potter, but instead the caption says when people turn 30, they're sorted into one of these 4 houses, and it's running, grad school, Japan, and pickleball.
Yeah.
Which I think is fairly accurate.
I feel like
Japan's a curveball.
Japan is a curveball.
But I know a lot of
I
people
get
who vacation and ski there.
Yeah, I get the premise of it. Are 30-year-olds pickleballing? I thought that was a
Oh my God.
older person thing.
No, my manager pickleballs in tournaments like every other day.
He's 30? Or
She's
30?
she's my age. Yeah, and Garrett's friends, they pickleball all the time.
Okay.
It's like a thing.
Yeah. I didn't realize it
I don't do
spanned
it,
the
but
demographics quite so far. 'Cause
Yeah.
I knew, like, at the gym that I'm at, the pickleball court is, like, always at capacity, and it's older folks, typically. I mean, I don't mean, like, older, but older than 30.
yeah. I think there's different ways we could take this because I think there's like the low-hanging fruit, which would be day hiker, section hiker, through hiker. You could toss trail angel in the 4th slot, like the person who's not actually hiking but likes to be around it.
When I was envisioning this without watching Harry Potter, I was thinking the types of people that are on a thru hike.
Okay,
And
that's
more
what I was
so,
going to
like,
say.
AT centric, but I guess it could apply to any.
I'm saying like that could be the low-hanging.
Yeah.
Obviously, you could sort it that way, but I
Right.
want something
This
more
is more
fun.
interesting. Yeah.
Like we could do FKT or dilly-dallyer because
Yeah.
they're different hiking speeds. But yes, what you're thinking where it's different.
I'll go through my 4. You give me your 4 if you prepared it that way, and then we can kind of collaborate to squeeze them all together, maybe in one lump sum. So for my 4 houses, I have the Stoners, Green Blazers. That's definitely a strong contingent, especially on the AT, it seems. As you mentioned, like the UL Graham Weenies, Mile Merchant types, the Town Day Maximalists, those who are living for town and spending a lot of money and moving slowly on the trail, and then like the social media influencer types.
Ooh, okay. What were your first 2?
Stoners,
Yep.
and then the just Graham Weenie Mile Merchants.
And then the town people, and then
Yeah.
the social media people.
Yeah.
Damn, that's good. I was thinking FKTers, which I think I would group into the ultralight Graham Weenies.
Yep.
They fall into that broader category.
For
So
sure.
I'll take your category on that. Then I had the dilly-dalliers, which is either
Could be a stoner.
could be a stoner, but could be like the retirees that you see doing 8-mile days from the start because they just don't have to worry about budget or time.
Yeah. At one point I had that as a category, and I think it's a very valid one. I thought there was too much overlap for like the Town Day Maximalists, but they don't always overlap. Like,
Well,
sometimes people go slowly and don't necessarily spend most of their time in town.
yeah, I put dilly-dallyer as in they slowly ramble the miles
Yeah.
and like take breaks and enjoy them, and
Tortoise in the
that
hare.
could be stonery or it could be retiree.
Yeah.
Whereas town hangers, that's what I called them, would be the people that are either taking a 0 in every town or maybe platinum blazing a bit, or like the party crowd.
Yeah.
Where they're like heading straight to the bar and getting lost in the vortex.
Yeah.
So that would be how I would differentiate the dilly-dalliers from the townies.
You could probably do 4 houses of people that are spending a lot of time in town. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree.
And then the 4th one, what was your 4th one?
The social media influencers.
Social media influencers. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I feel like that could be in any one of these houses as well. So definitely a lot of overlap.
Yeah. I'm
Maybe
trying to
not so
think.
much the stoner culture. I don't know. Are there popular? Yeah, there definitely are. I was thinking, who do I know that's big on Instagram who enjoys the ganj, but they exist and no names will be named.
Yeah, I think anytime you think they might not, they might.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me. Okay,
Cool.
we've got our houses.
Sweet. Now we just need, I mean, we could easily just throw this into some AI tool and get the,
Yeah,
well, I don't even know what the name for the
houses.
the house decals,
Crests.
insignias.
Crests.
Okay.
House crests.
Triple Crown of Gingers. This says
Yeah.
round 1 people. Did
Real
Rachel
people.
have real people? Did
Yeah.
Rachel have multiple rounds? Is this yours?
I can't remember if it was mine or someone else's, but I can remember saying that we should do different rounds because there's so many like characters alone
Yeah.
that it would be hard to do all of them in one.
Okay.
Would you like to start or will I start?
You start.
Lindsay Lohan.
Okay. Any particular reason?
I thought there were two of her for a while. Parent Trap, great movie.
You were definitely influenced by that movie.
How often as a child do you see another young ginger your age on screen? You don't. Ever. So there were two of them my age on screen, and one of them had a haircut that looked like mine, and that was really cool. So I really liked that movie.
My young ginger influence, not on my list, I doubt on yours, is the kid from The Sandlot.
Yeah, not on mine.
But you know who I'm talking about?
I've had people reference The Sandlot to me.
You've never seen The Sandlot?
I've seen parts. I've been in a room when it's on.
I'm sure I've said this on the podcast before, but Leo went through a big Sandlot phase, and that movie absolutely stands the test of time.
Leo?
A phenomenal... Yeah, my son.
Is this not a movie that, like...
There might be a couple scenes that are a little bit mature, but I think it's rated PG.
Oh, and I don't think that would be bad. I thought he was like watching
PG.
Bluey. He's on to adult real people movies.
That is one of the few non-cartoon movies that he will sit through. But yeah, he went through like a month-long phase where he'd go, "You're killing me, Smalls."
No. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had people say that line to me, and I just nod and smile.
It might be tough to sit down and watch as an adult, but of the kid movies, it's right near the top. It's very good.
Oh, wait. One day I'll have a kid and they'll want to watch it, I'm sure.
Okay. My picks. Number one, I was confident you wouldn't take him, and you didn't. Conan O'Brien.
No, I wasn't going to take him.
Conan is my king. Been a diehard Conan guy for a long time. Number two, I'm going to go with, because she's hot and I respect her acting, is Emma Stone.
Oh, she was on my contenders.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure I met her at my bachelor party. We were out at a bar, and I was getting a drink, and some gal started chatting me up. And like immediately I knew she looked familiar, and we were talking for like 30 seconds. I was very drunk, so I might have just scared her away with how drunk I was. But I'm like, "Are you in that movie with the Birdman?" And she just walked away. So I don't know if I scared her away because I was so incredibly
or if it just
drunk,
wasn't her.
Or it was her and her cover had gotten blown.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think I met Emma Stone. I told Jenna that story. She's like, "You did not meet Emma Stone." She's probably right, but I think it was Emma Stone.
Okay, well, I'll give it to you. My next one, this is hard because two of the ones I have are overlapping the same genre, and I don't want to be boring, but I feel like there's so much that rides on this. Okay. My next one I'm going to go with I'll go with Rupert Grint. He's the one that played Ron in Harry Potter.
Okay.
Again, love a little redhead representation growing up.
Okay.
Was great. So, wasn't my favorite person in Harry Potter, but it was fun seeing a ginger.
Is this like a current day or him in the movie?
Yeah, he looks cold there.
He looks cold. Pale, I think, is the word you're going for.
No, he's like in a turtleneck.
Yeah.
It's cold. So I'll put him. There's some honorable mentions I'll have. And then my last one is the most powerful redhead woman in history, Queen Elizabeth I. According to Wikipedia, it's the most powerful redhead woman in history. But last and longest reigning monarch of the House of Tudor. So, Anne Boleyn's daughter. Anne Boleyn got beheaded. She was the one that was with Henry VIII. She was one of the 6 wives.
Did I hear somewhere that Genghis Khan was a redhead?
No way.
While some historical accounts suggest Genghis Khan, I've heard it said Genghis as well, had red hair and green eyes. This is likely a misinterpretation of descriptions of his complexion and lineage. The accounts primarily from Persian historians don't directly state he had red hair, but rather that his complexion was ruddy or reddish, which is different according to Medium.com. Some accounts also mention that his clan, the Borjigin, were known to have gray or yellow eyes, but this doesn't confirm Genghis Khan's specific eye color.
I'm seeing a lot of people I didn't suspect as gingers.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill, Galileo.
Well, I still
sorry.
have to pick my last
I hope neither of those were on there.
No, but I'm going to go historical with it. I am saying this because I've been compared to him, and I don't think it's a compliment, is Van Gogh.
Ah, I could see that.
Yeah. People have said that I look like Van. I get the wildest doppelganger comparisons. I've gotten, who's the guy from A Walk in the Woods? Robert Redford. I've gotten young Robert Redford. Remember Teresa Martinez was on the podcast? I've gotten that a lot. I've gotten Chuck Norris. I've gotten Van Gogh. Some of these are more flattering than others.
I usually get Jessica Chastain, but I don't see that very much when I look. I think people just look at a redhead and they look at a girl with red hair the same length and they say, you look just like her. And it's like, what apart from her hair being the same length and color?
Yeah, the way that some people do it with minorities, say like because you're one, you look like all of them. I think some people do that with gingers as well. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Thomas Jefferson, apparently a redhead.
That was on my list as well.
Chris Columbus wouldn't be on my list, but
No.
apparently he was a redhead. Didn't know that.
I also had, is it Isla or Isla Fisher?
I don't know who that is.
That's Sacha Baron Cohen's wife. You've seen her in movies. She's in Wedding Crashers.
Henry VIII was also a ginger, apparently, as was Catherine of Aragon. Isla Fisher. Okay. I don't recognize her.
Yeah, some good gingers.
Yeah.
Carrot Top, that was one of the first ones that came to mind.
Didn't come to mind for me. Winston Churchill, it's, according to Google, the most famous redhead in history.
I feel bad for Carrot Top. He became like the Nickelback of comedians for some reason. I mean, I think being a ginger definitely doesn't help that cause, but...
It's also like, the name just reminds me of a clown.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's just this thing that happens in society that like once you get cast as being something, whatever... like Nickelback, for instance. Like, people shit on Nickelback way too much. It's not my favorite music in the world, but the amount of hate that Nickelback gets is completely unjustified.
Well, I think Garrett's kind of been manipulated by the media in that sense because he's terrified of one day us having a redheaded boy. He's very into the idea of a redheaded girl, but he thinks a redheaded boy will be sticky and annoying.
Sticky.
And I'm like, Garrett, you've just watched a lot of TV shows where the redheaded boy happens to be sticky and annoying. Like, we get typecast in that way. That's usually, like, it's usually the dweeb or the bully or, you know, the one with the annoying laugh.
Yeah, there's not too many redheaded protagonists.
For boys.
Yeah.
Because the girls, they can be cute and fun.
Right.
But the boys are usually little shits, and that's what Garrett really clings on to, is that if we have a little ginger boy, he's going to be a little shit.
Yeah, Chuck Norris is the redheaded hero.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess in his adult years, not really redheaded.
Well, what's fun now is I take a picture of someone if I see them and they're a redhead and they're a boy, and I send it to Garrett, and I try to guess how old they are, and I'll say, like, this is your son in 30 years, or, you know, like, I'll add on.
Yeah.
And that's a fun game to play.
Yeah. All right. That's good. Blank thing of the week. Mine's blood boiling thing of the week. This happened to me today. This is hot off the press.
Okay.
Let me prime this by saying, in my current state in life, I'm not a fan of driving long distance for hikes because I have no free time. So, like, I'm anxious being in the car because the time I'm taking to drive is just like the least productive use of time for me.
Yeah.
But I decided to break my rule. I wanted to do a hike called the High Lonesome Loop in the Indian Peaks Wilderness. It's 16 miles. I think it gains like 3,500 feet. It's popular for runners. It gets up to the Divide. It's supposed to be beautiful. But all the comments say, like, don't do this on the weekend. It's a zoo. It sucks, blah, blah, blah. Or it doesn't suck, but, like, you have to take a shuttle to get to the parking lot because the parking lot's going to be full. So I'm like, okay, cool. Monday, I'm going. Get there at 9 a.m. The parking lot is full. It's an hour drive each way to get there. My other option was there is a shuttle that will take you there. I don't even know what schedule the shuttle runs, but we have the podcast today, and I didn't want to be... Like, it was going to be tough for me to complete the hike even with parking at the trailhead. Adding a shuttle into it just made it completely unreasonable.
Did you just drive there and drive straight back?
So I ended up driving back to Boulder and doing something in the foothills, which sucked because the hike that I did is like 20 minutes from my house. It ended up taking me 2 hours to get there. And like I didn't start until after 10 o'clock when it's already over 80 degrees and like the sun's blasting. So yeah, I burned 2 hours of my day just driving to a hike that I couldn't do. So I don't know if I'm going to be repeating that one just because I can only start so early. I'm responsible for dropping either a kid off at school or camp. So I can't get out earlier than that. And
yeah,
that was not fun for me.
Everything's getting more crowded. Not to be that person.
Yeah, it's because Boulder. I blame Boulder.
Okay,
no
I
one
like
in
that.
No one in Boulder has real jobs. Everyone's like a tech entrepreneur or an Olympic athlete or like a trust fund baby or like people don't abide by. I mean, I can't throw. I was going on a hike on a Monday morning. I'm in the same camp, but there's just the town of Netherland and all the hikes that surround it are primarily Boulder area people because it's so proximate for them. And yeah, I think they're more likely to be clogging up the trailheads than some of the hikes off of like 70 or 285 because the rest of America hikes on the weekends.
Well, that's a good little piece of advice for anyone who travels through is if you're looking for a day hike to do and you're traveling through, maybe don't go to the Boulder area.
I also did read that trailhead especially is nuts. So I guess I should have known that was going to be a possibility. But all of the accounts of the trailhead or the parking lot being full was like, that's a weekend thing. So happened to me on a Monday.
Yeah, that would boil my blood.
Yeah,
for sure.
That was frustrating. But as they say, that's a first world problem. I got over it quickly.
We have a listener voicemail.
Yes, we do.
That's exciting. I want Jessica to
Hello,
lead
Zach
this one.
and Chance. I'm responding to Zach's question in the Girl Stuff 3 episode about cranberries and UTIs. So I work in the health and wellness space and supplements, and I know a lot about UTIs and cranberries. Cranberries contain proanthocyanidins, also called PACs, and that stops the bacteria from adhering to the bladder wall, which is what's causing your UTI in the first place. Shameless plug, the company I work for is called Semaine Health, and the supplement we sell is called Urinary Tract Cleanse and Protect. You might be able to get it at your local Walmart because that supplement is in a couple thousand Walmart stores across the country. And it's super, super bioavailable. So that's the thing with cranberry, like pure, tart, unsugared cranberry juice can help with UTIs, but you'd have to drink a lot of it, like a lot. And nobody wants to drink that anyways. And you can't pack that out. But you can pack these supplements out, and you really only need one a day. I take them every day, full disclosure. I take all of our supplements because I love them so much. But yeah, cranberries are great for preventing UTIs, and that is why.
More you know.
I don't remember my specific question, but it sounds like a question I would ask.
Sounds like she answered it.
Yeah. Thank you to Rachel. That was very informative. And apparently we do free ads for people if you leave us a voicemail. So yeah, plug your shit. Mailbag.
Yep. Jumping back a few of the notches, I had a dream that I had a gear review, and it was so realistic that my brain didn't register that it wasn't a real thing. So I came in ready to do my gear review, and then I was like, wait, what was the gear I was going to review? Because I was supposed to go hiking on Friday, and that's when the solids weren't staying solid. So I was like, when did I try something that I was going to review? And then I remembered that it had to have been in a dream. It was like DCF pants or something. I was like, I tried them. They're great.
Sounds sweaty.
So, yeah, there almost was a gear review there, but then I realized it didn't exist.
Yeah, good.
Mailbag. Was listening to your interview with Jonathan Thomas. Full disclosure, my son has been helping Jonathan make gear, but wanted to say something about using dry ice. A lot of people had stuff to say about dry ice, guys. This was a very, As a scientist in grad school, we used to play around with dry ice, and if you seal it into an airtight container, it creates a bomb. Since the dry ice undergoes sublimation, i.e. goes from a solid to a gas, and pressure from a gaseous CO2 inside any container builds rapidly. Serious damage to eyes and limbs can occur. I've seen it happen. So if you use dry ice, be sure your container is not completely airtight. From Peter. Yeah, we got a lot of emails from people being like, hey, heard you wondering what would happen. The answer is it's a bomb.
Yeah.
So I will not be trying that. Thank you, everyone, for letting me know before I accidentally made a bomb.
Yeah. This is, again, a blanket disclosure that don't do anything that you hear on this podcast
without
ever.
Googling it first.
Or talking to your doctor or your resident scientist or your mom.
Yeah, it's just like anyone
consult all three
educated
before doing anything. That being said,
it
again,
was funny to get a string of it's a bomb emails.
Don't do what I'm about to say, but I looked into it, and apparently like those 5-gallon buckets are not airtight. Let me just
so you could cache food in it. You just can't carry it in your bare can. I don't think they are. They have one of those like suction-y lids.
Okay, standard 5-gallon bucket lids are not inherently airtight. To achieve a truly airtight seal, you need a rubber sealed or gasketed lids. So you have to get a specific lid that is airtight to make it a bomb.
My thought when we were talking to him...
This is not advice on how to make a bomb.
No. My advice... when I was talking to him, my thought was, why couldn't you put dry ice in your resupply? And then, like, when you're carrying your bear can, it keeps everything in it cold. Mm-hmm. And that was where it was like, if it's a bear can and you're screwing the screwies on, that's a bomb.
Yeah.
But if you're caching a Home Depot 5-gallon bucket, probably not a bomb.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Consult your mother, scientist, and doctor to get the true answer to that. But according to the authority on this, which is epackagesupply.com, the standard 5-gallon bucket lids are not inherently airtight. So, yeah.
Yep.
Don't make bombs.
Thank you, Peter, and everyone else who very quickly emailed in.
Yeah. We're outspoken on this podcast about not making bombs.
Yeah, we do not encourage it at all.
We're going to go down as a very strongly
anti-bomb
podcast. Good. We didn't change it up and do a 4-star review. I just picked this one specifically. Let me see. This is from Batches Stabrook 14. Lightning episode week of June 2. I listen to almost every episode that comes out and love hearing people's stories and especially appreciate when they have experts on. However, I gotta say, BPR lost some credibility when their weather expert, in quotes, couldn't bring himself to say that, yes, climate change is real. Seriously? So I made the editorial decision to leave that part in the episode for a very specific reason, and I'm assuming a lot of people caught on to that, but I guess I'm going to be explicit about it here. I just wanted to show how absurd it is that a scientist didn't feel safe stating a basic scientific fact that climate change is real due to fear from the administration in power. We thought there was value for listeners to hear his hesitation on speaking on the subject for what it was. So, the guest that we're referencing, I think, was definitely not even a little bit transparent about his feelings on the subject because he didn't want to lose his job.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why that was there. Also, if you guys want to hear your review right on this podcast, don't leave 4 stars.
Nope. 5 stars.
5 stars is what we're
even
after.
Even if it's a roast. We'll read a roast.
Yeah, we'll read a roast. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars.
Just not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay. Thank you to our title sponsor for today, Element. I told Chauncey this before we started recording. I'm legitimately on my 4th element of the day. I've been trying to train for what I hope is going to be a hike in a week and a half or so, because the thing is happening where I realize I'm just like badly out of shape and I've got trail miles ahead. So I train hard. I live in the foothills. I said that I don't like driving, so I hike where it's hot, and I just sweat a tremendous amount. And I recently did the A/B testing where I went a few days without either Element or like being intentional about getting high sodium foods, and like immediately I get like that brain fog, hard to focus, hard to articulate thoughts sort of thing. And now that I'm doing not only elements, but I'm doing several a day, dependent on how much I'm sweating, it's just clear as day that having a lot of electrolytes, especially sodium, is a huge benefit, at least to me. So big fan of Element and their products. Their sample pack is now their 4 most popular flavors: citrus, orange, raspberry salt, grapefruit.
I think so.
Is that right?
That
no,
sounds right.
One of them's watermelon.
Maybe take out raspberry then.
I think it is raspberry. I think it might not be grapefruit. I don't know. It's the 4 flavors. You'll see it on the website.
Yeah.
But go to our URL, drinkelement.com/trek for a free sample pack with your order. Do you have any Element love you want to throw? I assume you were getting some good use out of it in Mexico.
I was going to say I brought a hell of a lot of it to Mexico for the girls. I also was filling Garrett's suitcase with it, and he was like, "We don't need it." Yes, you do. You and 10 boys do need this.
Also, if you're not drinking it, then you're fucking up. Cause
yeah.
I always bring a lot for pals when we're doing that sort of adventure too, and like I become their mother.
Yeah.
At points, being like, "Drink this."
I was texting him. I was like, "Have you had water yet?" Put some in it. But no, also this week in general, I was laughing because we have to send more photos to Elise, and the last ones I sent was when I was sick in bed and I was holding it up. And then this week I was like, oh, I should send some more. And it's me sick on the toilet holding it up. So I was like, I think I need to vary this up a bit. I'm not going to send this. But yeah, basically you can listen to the next episode. You can listen to a episode to get more context. There's a QOTD where we go into it. But essentially Mexico is Mexicoing its way out of my system right now. And Element is one of the only things I can keep down.
Which is good.
Which is good.
You're losing a lot of electrolytes.
I'm losing, yeah.
Yeah. How was the bachelorette party? Was the weather what you were hoping?
The weather, okay. It was seaweed season. So there was more seaweed on the beaches, which, whatever. I don't care. I was one with the seaweed. But Friday was our boat day. That was the day we were supposed to go out on the boat for 6 hours. Big event. And Friday morning, we're all up and ready to be picked up, and the person doesn't come. And we're looking into the email, and we realized that they had accidentally, like when we were like, yeah, mark us down for the 27th or whatever day it was, they had marked us down for the 28th.
Ooh.
So it was an error on their part. They scheduled us for the wrong day, but they were like, we don't have any boats left for today. Also, it's going to thunderstorm all day. So we were like, okay, we'll just...
On the day that you were supposed to book it for,
yeah,
or it did get booked?
On the day that we tried to book it for, that we thought we booked it for, it was going to rain all day. And they were like, oh, we actually have you scheduled for the next day. So it was fine, and it worked out for the best because we ended up having weather where we could actually go out in the boat, even though it was for a shorter period of time and we just stayed in the bay because the water was choppy. We actually got to go out on the boat as opposed to all the other ones that just got canceled. But then Friday we were like, well, we don't know what to do with our full day now because it was going to be boat, then go out to dinner and stay out. And now it was just we're going out to dinner at 8 p.m., 9 a.m. We're all ready because we thought we were going on a boat. What do we do?
Day drink.
So we went to a place for brunch and we started playing shot roulette where basically the waiter, there were 6 of us. So the waiter would bring over 6 shots. 1 was tequila, 5 were water. And then they'd put them down, and just so he couldn't be biased because I was paranoid, I would be like, okay, rotate them 4 to your left. And we'd pass them 4 times. And then you'd go one by one and each person would do their shot. And they would either pretend like it was gross or pretend that it wasn't. And you had to guess at the end who you think got it. And then the next round you would do 2 tequila shots.
All the participants are guessing, or is there like a judge?
No, everyone's just going around and being like, I think it's so-and-so, I think it's so-and-so.
Yeah.
And it was funny because one of the friends one time was like, I think it's me. Because like she still wasn't over it. But yeah, then round 2 we did 2 shots of tequila, 4 shots of water, and then 3 shots of tequila, 3 shots of water. And so yeah, we were having fun by noon. And it just stayed that way.
Did you make it out to the wheel?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like covered myself in seaweed on the beach. There was someone who was, oh my God, have I not showed you any of these photos? I haven't made a post yet because I'm just like overwhelmed.
What did you smell like after being unseaweeded?
I don't know.
Can't be the best.
Oh, I took it out of the things I was going to post. I'm trying to narrow down photos, and to get just 20 is actually really hard. This is me in the seaweed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Gross.
she was in there. They also had Garrett heads that they had printed out. So it's like Garrett's face. And so, like, there was a lot of us and Garrett doing things, taking Garrett to do things at the club bar situation. Like, everyone who was dancing on a surface, we would hand a Garrett head to and make them dance with Garrett. Got a Garrett chant going. It was just a lot of, like, who's this? Why is Garrett in her pants?
That's not one of your party members?
No, I don't know her.
Nice.
Here's a guy making ceviche as Garrett.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, it was a great trip. I came back, and the only thing that sucked was I accidentally booked a basic economy ticket on United, and man, for the amount I fly with them, you'd think that they could just do a girl a solid and like let me switch my flight or do something, or like realize like, hey, I didn't actually mean to book basic economy. I didn't realize that I was like putting myself in cargo essentially by doing that. So everyone that had been on, well, the one other person that had been on my flight home, because I was flying in and out of Tulum Airport because I didn't want to sit in a shuttle back to Cancun hungover. But the flight out of Cancun was more convenient. So everyone flew out of Cancun, and I stuck with my Tulum flight because I couldn't change it because of basic economy. And so basically, I don't fly out of Tulum until 3 p.m. I get there at 10 a.m. because that's when the shuttle dropping off the other girl with an earlier flight went. And you can't check in. There's no one at United's check-in. So I'm waiting. Finally, it's like 2 hours before the earlier flight is set to leave. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go to the counter now. Someone's surely got to be there, and maybe they can switch me to the earlier flight. Guy's like, oh, man, if you didn't have a checked bag, I could have, but now it's just too late. So I'm like, okay. So I go sit back down. I keep my later flight. I just say that's what is deserved by me. And it just kept getting delayed because there was weather in Houston. But fortunately, I had a 4-hour layover in Houston because it was such a shitty flight I booked. So I never ended up missing the second leg of the flight, but I didn't get home till like 2 a.m. And I had spent from 9 a.m. the previous morning in the airport.
I'm sure with the worst hangover of all time.
It was hell.
Yeah.
And then the only thing I was eating in the airport was just more al pastor tacos. Because I was like, once I leave here, I won't get them again.
Yeah.
Not like this.
Yeah. Coming home from those trips, I find it necessary to have a margarita at the airport, even though it's $400, because I can't be on that flight.
I still haven't touched alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm like, I brought home 3 really nice bottles of tequila. Me and Garrett can't look at them.
Yeah.
Because we're both just in that post phase of, that was so much fun, but I don't want to look at alcohol for maybe another week.
Good accidental sober October in July.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing pretty good on sober July because I had no plans on 4th of July because I was watching the dog.
Oh, there you go. Are you going to make it to the end of the month?
I've got a wedding to go to on the 26th. But apart from that, I think I could do it.
Fuck yeah.
Unless something better comes up.
Good.
Yeah.
Drink Element, LMNT.com, LMNT/Trek for a free sample pack. Super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Alex Kindle, Andrew Austin McDaniel, Brad Miller from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables,
Carl Hood, Christopher Marshburn, Clever Innuendo. Okay, now we've got the backstory here.
I knew it was someone we knew.
Derek Cook ended up changing his name to Clever Innuendo. That son of a gun.
But hey, not as clever as Lauren F.
Coach from Marion Outdoors, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost,
Eric Hoffman, Ethan Harwell Dunn, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg Martin, Greg McDaniel, Griffin Hay, Would You Bring Me a Beer, Haley Buckingham,
Dallas,
Patrick C. Cialo, Rebecca Brave, Rural Juror. You try it.
I did. Rural Juror.
Rural Juror. Say it 3 times fast.
Rural Juror, Rural Juror, Rural Juror.
Pretty good.
Thanks.
That backfired. Sawyer Product Spam, Timothy Hahn.
Solo.
And Tracy Trigger.
Buns.
Thanks to our guy Paulie at Old Man Murph's Coffee Roasters. Go get yourself some delicious beans at ommcr.com. Follow us on social at Backpacker Radio on Instagram and TikTok at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chauncey.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey, on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey, and you can get my book, Hiking from Home, a long-distance hiking guide for family and friends, on Amazon.
Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
Also, subscribe, comment, follow.
Push all the buttons.
Push the buttons. Do us a solid. That is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.